Welcome to our first of 3 Searchspring live sessions. Today, we're going to specifically dive into e-commerce site search. As I mentioned, this is the first of 3 sessions. We'll be doing one next week, same time, and then in 2 weeks we'll do another one. The next 2 sessions will be focused on merchandising and personalization. And again, today's session will be focused on site search specifically. My name is Charles Summers. I'll be your host today. I'm going to mostly get out of the way here in just a second, let our experts do their thing. But I'm the head of growth marketing here at Searchspring. You can see my email address there. If you'd like to reach out to me after the webinar is over with any questions, feel free to do so. One thing I'll mention before I move any further is there is a Q&A section in your control panel. So if you have any questions while we're going through today's material, feel free to put it in there. We're going to set aside some time at the end to go through any questions that you might have. All right, so I want to welcome both Matts, Matt Jarman and Matt Barber. Feel free to turn on your cameras. Hey guys, I'm gonna kick it over to you to introduce yourself. So Matt Jarman, I'll go to you first.
Hey everyone, I'm Matt Jarman, Strategic Sales Manager at Searchspring. I work with our incoming prospects who want to learn a little bit more about Searchspring and how we can help out.
Yeah, and I'm Matt Barber. I am a Senior Customer Success Manager at Searchspring. I've been working in the marketing space for about the last 7 years. And right now I've primarily focused on our top tier customers and helping them out with strategy and getting the most out of their Searchspring account.
Thanks, guys. All right, so I'm going to quickly go through today's agenda. So first, we are going to have a couple of just real quick 30-second poll questions. We're going to dive into site search. We'll do a walkthrough. And then we have, basically 5 different areas that we'll kind of go through, helping shoppers find what they need quickly and easily, understanding and satisfying shoppers' intent, leveraging product discovery opportunities, increasing conversion, and then we'll also talk about some of the things that are new with Searchspring if you haven't checked this out in a while. So we'll go over to our first poll here. Give me one moment to pull it up. All right, so first poll is on your screen right now. We'll give it 30 seconds. The question is, do you use a search tool outside of your native platform? Select one of the following. Yes, I use Searchspring. So if you're a customer, welcome. Yes, I use the search tool outside of my native platform. No, I use the search function inside of my native platform, or no, I'm not currently using any type of site search tool. Give it about 10 more seconds here. All right, cool. All right, we're gonna go ahead and close it up and I'll share the results. Okay, so 25% of you already use Searchspring. 25% use a search tool outside of your native platform, and the other half of you are using a search function within your native platform currently. All right, I'm gonna hide the results there and move on to the next poll. Pull that one up. All right, so you should see that on your screen now. How satisfied are you with your current site search tool? Select one of the following. So very satisfied, satisfied, fairly satisfied, not satisfied. Give it about 10 more seconds here. All right. Okay, I don't think all of the results came through. I think maybe something was wrong with the poll there. Well, I'll share it anyway. So everybody, I think it only counted a couple of people, so I apologize that it didn't pull up everything, but fairly satisfied. So we'll just go ahead and move on here. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and take myself off the screen and take the slides off. Matt Jarman, I'm gonna pass controls over to you and you can kind of start doing your thing. So give me one moment here and I'll give it to you.
Thanks, Charles. I'll
Have to
just
assume
note
at
while you're
least.
handing it over that the Searchspring users did not vote. They were not they were not represented in poll number 2. All right, give me 2
I was going to say the
seconds.
same thing.
Great minds. All right, just got my, not yet. Oh, I didn't freeze. That's good. Oh, I am freezing a little bit. Not good. All right, can you see that?
Yep, looks good.
Cool deal. So, like Charles said, we got about 5 things to talk about. Keep it pretty high level, informational. Thanks everyone for hopping on. First, I want to talk about just the importance of site search. And I have 3, 4, 5, 6 combos a day of all sorts of industries, ranging from fashion and apparel to automotive to B2B, home goods, you name it. And one of the consistent things that I see is, or that we see in the market, is the importance of site search as it relates to your bottom line. Sometimes we'll see customers or prospects with traffic using, or 5% of their traffic using site search, or 10% of their traffic using site search, but it's always shown that 20, 30, 40, 45% of their bottom line revenue is attributed to site search. So it's wildly important. And for those who, maybe are using a native search, or maybe you're using a platform that's, just maybe something in an app store or something like that, it's akin to saying, I don't really care much about 30 or 40 or 50% of my bottom line. So it's really important. And I think there are some tips that, not Searchspring related, that can get your site search usage up, because they're high intent customers. They care about your website. They came to your website for a specific reason. They're looking for something in your site. So I want to bring in Matt Barber to speak about some of those things we can do to get people to use site search more. What do we see, Barber?
Yeah, the 2 things that we see kind of at the top of the funnel, if you want to say for search specifically, would be to get your shoppers to use it, right? And so the 2 things that I see with my customers that end up leading to increases for search usage is, one is providing a positive search experience. So, if your shopper today is utilizing your search and we're not producing consistent results, or more importantly, relevant results to what they're searching for, they're less likely to come back and utilize search in the future. But then also, second, and this is a little bit outside of what Searchspring controls, but really on any and all of your websites, designing your search bar to be easily found and also easy to use. So I know sometimes for design's sake, the search bar might be hidden behind like a menu button, especially on a mobile device. But again, just making it easier for your shoppers to find it and use it tend to increase the number of shoppers who are engaging with search and leading to those higher conversion rates.
And I think, Barbara, you were referencing maybe this blog that you're going to send out. So I think we'll send this out after the webinar. But so those are small changes where you can increase the white space in the search bar to ensure that visitors can see the search bar, and small things like that can really cause drastic increases to your conversion rates and drastic increases to your bottom line. So just a small tip there. Now, regardless of the search tool you use, whether it's native or if it's Searchspring or if it's one of the other 100 search tools that are out there, ultimately the search tool is only going to be as good as the data that you're pushing into the search tool. And this varies wildly across industry too. There are some industries like fashion and apparel that the data is often quite good. It's quite easy to use. And there are some industries like automotive or B2B or industrial where you're getting data from 100 different vendors, and you're a retailer and you're selling so many different products on your site, and you don't know what you're going to get, and you have a lean team and you can't really normalize the data. So Barbara, what are some tips around the data, and how can we help, and how can we guide, and what should customers be doing?
Yeah, absolutely. And you hit it right on the head, as there's a wide range of experiences that we're working with. And so as a company, we try to be flexible, but when it comes to data, more than anything else, consistency in naming conventions, consistency in tagging is going to allow, for consistent results. And again, relevant results for those searches that are happening. So, just a bad example of consistency, or I guess, inconsistency would be if you're utilizing black blanket shirt for one product, but then maybe another product you're calling it blanket shirt in blue. That's a lot of inconsistency there, and so it can make it more challenging to provide relevant results and consistency there. And then in certain circumstances where maybe you don't have control over the naming conventions for the titles, there are alternative fields that we can look at within your data to help, again, provide really consistent and relevant results. So a lot of different options, sometimes more challenging than others, but consistency really is king.
And I want to piggyback on that. So, thinking about some of those industries where it's like, there are so many different examples, but let's say they name their products something very weird, or they name it something in a different language, or they name it these weird, these things that don't describe the product because that's what they do, that's their style. Or if it's maybe a B2B company that says, it's a screw dash 3/16 of an inch dash for this. What can be done in those cases, or how can we make the relevancy better than what it is today?
Yeah, absolutely. So what we do is we generate a product type based on typically the product name or the product title. And so what we're actually able to do is to strip out certain parts of that name to get to the true object or the subject of what the product truly is. So, when someone might be searching for a specific drill, but also might come with certain sizes or voltage or something like that, we can kind of strip certain parts of the name out to get to the root of what that product is, and that's ultimately a drill. Now, what's great is that we don't get rid of it entirely. We still allow it to be found within the searchable data. So if someone is specifically searching for 12-volt, drills, we can produce specific results for that product despite stripping it out from what we determine as the product type.
And I think that's important. And I'm just going to pivot over to the screen. I think it's important, especially for something that comes to mind. You say we want the data to be consistent, and oftentimes I'll see websites using, to your example, dress in pink, dress in blue, or dress dash pink, and it's consistently done that way, which is really good for us because we can strip out that dash or strip out anything after the word in, so that we know we're getting to the root of what they're looking for, which is a dress. And I think that's a good segue into the next point is, if you're using maybe a native search, or if you're using maybe a search app that's free in the App Store or something like that, oftentimes, the relevancy or which products are showing up is going to be determined based on keyword matching, or something that's heavily used in document search that says, I'm going to search for a dress, and we're going to look for the product that has dress the most times in its description, and that's the most relevant product. But it may not be the most relevant product. And so going back to that thought of product typing, how Searchspring does it is we take that naming convention, we do what we call product typing or product awareness, which is us just looking at how people actually search in real life. People are programmed by Google and other search engines to search in a very specific way, which is the way they talk. And so we do that. We look at where the adjectives are and the nouns are and the subjects. And ultimately, that's going to be the difference in an example I always give, searching for milk chocolate versus chocolate milk. One is Hershey's and one is Nesquik. We're not looking for the same thing, even though the words are the same. And so an example I like to give is this store. It's our test store, looking for a blanket, where this store also carries blanket shirts, and it's one of their best sellers. And so in this example, we can search for blanket and see that the blankets are populating at the top of the results because that's ultimately what we're looking for. It's the product type. But as I scroll down and look toward the bottom of the results, I can find the blanket shirts. And if I were to search inversely, blanket shirt, I'm not going to see blankets littering or cluttering the top of the results. And I was actually just talking to a store yesterday who sold cowboy hats. And when I searched for cowboy hats on their site, I got cowboy hat bands in the first 20 results, which me as a customer, I'm not looking for cowboy hat bands. I'm looking for cowboy hats. So that relevancy piece is extremely important, because if customers aren't finding what they're looking for quickly, they're out of here. They're not going to stick around. I want to quickly pivot to the search preview that Searchspring offers, or I call it the back end search, or uncovering the curtain, pulling back the curtain on the Wizard of Oz. This is us saying, hey, there's no black box to search, and making it very simple for someone with, you could have a ton of technical acumen, or you could have zero technical acumen and be able to fix your search. And so if I were to go into our back end and search the exact same thing, so I search blanket here and I get my results, and I get the checkerboard and the red and the blue over here. I can go into our backend and get the exact same result set, but ultimately figure out why these products are showing up in the position that they are, in the search result that they are. And so to take a quick look at this, if I were to look at going back to that product type, these are all called blankets. And with that, they're getting 5-point relevancy for us. And the way Searchspring looks at it, these are all relevant because they're all blankets. Some vendors or some search partners will say this is a 5.1 blanket and a 4.9 and a 3.2. And it doesn't really make sense in the context of e-commerce, because if I search for a blanket, I want to see the blankets. Barber, anything to talk about around, okay, well, my data is just not that clean. What can we do to optimize some things, or to put band-aids on things where we don't have to completely overhaul the data just to make it work?
Yeah, for sure. So I think there's a few things that we're able to do to help with this challenge, because it is a very common challenge that we deal with. And so there's certain things that we can handle right within the data that we're working with. So sometimes we might find the keyword in the name. Sometimes we might not. So we need to make other fields searchable. And so we can look at it from that perspective. But also on top of that, I think there's going to be times and situations where maybe your shopper doesn't call it a blanket, they might call it a quilt or something. You use another form or fashion to describe that product. And so we're able to help bridge the gap between those two, utilizing things like synonyms, both grouped and one-way synonyms for different scenarios, as well as redirects. So maybe it doesn't make sense to try to utilize another word that you call it in your data versus what your shopper might call that product. Sometimes it might make sense to redirect them to a page, whether that's for a return policy, but also we could return them to a specific brand page as well, to help manage that process. So yeah, I mean, so there's definitely gonna be situations, where we're gonna try to do our best to format the data in a consistent sort of format. And sometimes that's maybe even using another field. So I know for instance, Shopify customers, they have a field called the product type. And so if there's just a lot of inconsistencies in the naming conventions and we just can't work with it there, I've worked with customers to look at that product type field instead. And again, we've already mentioned, but we can strip out certain portions of that, all to help produce relevant and consistent results, which go back to the beginning of our conversation, right, of search usage and trying to provide positive shopping experiences for these shoppers who have typically an intent to purchase, which leads to higher conversions.
That's good stuff. I think it's important to, when thinking about applying all these synonyms and applying all these redirects, it's important to think about the analytics behind all this and being able to not spin our wheels on the things that people actually aren't searching for. So it's very common to come in and think, I have to make a million synonyms because, a top can be called all these things and shoes can be called all these things. But ultimately, it's about what your actual shopper is looking for. So it's quite easy to jump into some analytics to figure out, hey, what are people actually searching for on my site by volume? Let me spend some additional time on top 10 or top 20 or top 50 search queries, and create the synonyms I need to, create the redirects I need to, and also merchandise in the way I need to. Being able to say, hey, the relevancy is one part of the equation, and maybe your current search vendor is showing relevant products, and there's a sort by relevancy option, which doesn't really make sense because all relevant products are relevant. And so I think the additional layer, which we'll talk about a little more next week, is going to be the merchandising component, which says, hey, Searchspring, show me every relevant product. In this case, show me every single dress. Okay, now we as a business want to merchandise these dresses in a way that makes sense to us as a business. And so this is something that could be automated, could be dynamic, could be manual, could be personalized. but just having more control over that actual search experience, because again, we're now talking about 30 or 40% of our bottom line that we need to have control over. Barbara, any additional quick hitter thoughts on search as we go into the holiday season, why it's impactful and ways that we can help?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things I forgot to mention is, a lot of the merchandisers I work with, time is the biggest challenge. And so finding ways to automate these processes to provide positive experience for the shoppers. One of our newer releases is integrated spell correction, which looks at a merchandiser's product data as the dictionary essentially for the spell correction. So you don't have to go through and create every single last synonym for every possible variation of a misspelling. Instead, we're going to look at your product data, look to write an exact example here, and we're still going to produce those relevant results because we're finding blanket again in the data. We're finding that subject position, and again, if they added shirt and they misspelled that, again, we would automatically make those connections happen for your shoppers to find the products that they're looking for. And then I think ahead of the seasons that are coming up, thinking through, really optimizing, right? Going through providing, making sure your data is clean, if that's a project that you have the bandwidth to invest in. In addition to that, start thinking through the campaigns that you have planned to run. And we'll touch more of it probably next time, but the merchandising campaigns that you can schedule out and run, thinking through those experiences for your shoppers and optimizing at this is going to allow you to capitalize on those key moments of the year.
That's good stuff. If there are any questions, I don't know if any have came in or if anybody has any questions to ask. I think we're a little over our intended time.
Yeah, so I've got a couple of just quick ones here, and then we'll bring it to a close here after another couple minutes. Okay, so, and Jarm, you kind of talked about this briefly, but why is this better than native search tool? Maybe just reiterate there just a little bit.
I always say it's because of the control that you have over your search experience. In a native tool, there are a lot of bells and whistles that Searchspring could offer, but ultimately it's the control over the experience, because in a native tool, there really isn't that granular layer of control. So if I search for something on the site, it's whatever you see. What you see is what you get. It may be good, it may be bad, it may be relevant, it may be not. But ultimately, Searchspring is going to give you that ability to say, hey, I want my search experience to be this way because this is what I know about my shoppers and this is what I know about my business.
Cool, awesome. Two more quick questions. What considerations need to be made from a data privacy perspective? Specifically, the question is, how safe is it from data privacy? So not sure, Jarm, if you get that question a lot when you're doing demos, but maybe just talk about how that all works.
So there are a few ways to go with the question, so I'm not sure if this will answer the question, but Searchspring is going to be compliant with things like GDPR, CCPA, any of the data privacy laws that are out there. Searchspring doesn't carry any personally identifiable information. So when thinking about things like, hey, my customer information or my customer data, everything's going to be hashed. So if we haven't gotten to this, but if we're thinking about something like personalization, or if we're thinking about how are we personalizing the search experience or giving this customer personalized recommendations, nothing's personally identifiable. So I may be customer 123 or customer ABC, and that's how we know this customer likes these certain things. But beyond that, it's first party data, it's your cookies, it's your data, and we're not able to identify people based on that.
Cool, awesome. Yeah, and to the person who asked that question, if you need more context, just let us know. Feel free to follow up with us after. The last question is, how long does Searchspring take to implement? Could we be live before Black Friday?
You could. So there are a few ways you can implement. Searchspring is going to be one of the only vendors that can implement for you. So I will just note Searchspring's a fully custom implemented solution. So it's not an app in the App Store where you can start tomorrow. It typically takes about 8 weeks if we're handling the implementation, our development team. So a signature today looks like a go live mid-September. Now you do have the option of implementing yourself or implementing with an agency. So that would be up to their resources and their timeline. We've seen it in 4 weeks, 6 weeks, 8 weeks. So you have options. If you don't have a dev team or any access to resources, then we have that option available.
Awesome. Just going to pull up this final slide here. Just want to thank everybody for joining us today. Quite a few people joined, so really appreciate you coming and learning today. If you want to have a follow-up conversation, you can connect directly with Matt, Matt Jarman, Matt squared. But yeah, Matt Jarman, you can scan this QR code here on your screen. Otherwise, when the survey pops up at the end, when you leave, there will also be a link in the question that'll take you to his calendar to schedule some time. So feel free to do it that way as well. That's it. So thank you, everyone. Thanks, Matt and Matt. And we'll see you all next week.
Awesome. Thank you, guys.